o'clock on this Sunday morning. We're taking a live look right now right over South Bend. You can see some dark clouds as I'm joined by meteorologist Jessica Burns. Jessica, somewhat of a dry start this morning, but things could change.
Yes, we did see some rain showers overnight last night. Maybe you heard a few rumbles of thunder. There wasn't anything so when in a few minutes.
Jessica, thanks. Meantime, 2 people are dead and 28 injured after a mass shooting in Baltimore. It happened at a block party early this morning. Officials say of the 28 injured, 3 are in serious condition. Investigators say they're reviewing surveillance video and speaking to witnesses. Police have not identified any suspects. Russia launched an overnight drone attack on Kyiv after a 12-day break. Witnesses heard blasts resembling the sound of air defense systems hitting targets. There was no immediate information about the scale of the attack. Kyiv, its region, and a number of central and eastern Ukraine's regions were under air raid alerts for about an hour after 2 a.m. local time. 2 people are dead after being involved in a crash with a teenager in St. Joseph County, Michigan. The crash happened Friday night just after 10:30 on Indian Prairie Road. Police say a 19-year-old from LaGrange County tried passing a car in a no-passing zone. The teen's car hit the other car, sending it off the road and hitting a tree. A 29-year-old woman was pronounced dead at the scene. A 27-year-old woman was airlifted to the hospital where she later died. Officials arrested the teenager and charged him with several felonies. Police believe alcohol and speed were a factor in the crash. It remains under investigation. Supreme Court rulings within the last 2 days have created polarization among many. One of them, President Biden's attempt to forgive student loan debt. This ruling impacts the 40 million Americans who would have qualified for $20,000 in student loan debt forgiveness.
About 26 million people had applied to have those loans forgiven. And when we say loans, we mean the principal on the loan. So those would be wiped out to a tune of $10,000 for folks earning $125,000 a year or less.
More decisions made by the Supreme Court include rulings in favor of religious rights, the 303 Creative case about a website design company denying customers based on sexual orientation. The Groff case involves a former UPS driver that's sued for being disciplined for taking Sundays off to observe the Sabbath day. A reminder for drivers in Michigan, if you're traveling this holiday weekend, a new distracted driving law went into effect Friday. The state is now a hands-free state, meaning you can't use your cell phone if you're driving. Texting while driving has been illegal for years, but the new law prohibits all use of cell phones unless it's hands-free. The United Nations is ending its peacekeeping mission in Mali. Thousands of troops have been deployed to the West African country since 2012 to defend residents against an Islamic insurgency that killed thousands. The country's military rulers are now demanding the peacekeepers leave. They'll instead rely on troops provided by Russia's Wagner Group, the same mercenary force responsible for a brief uprising against Russia's military last weekend. The White House accuses the group's leader of orchestrating the peacekeepers' departure. After days of protests in France, officials say more than 700 businesses were damaged across the country. The protests erupted after a 17-year-old was killed by police on Tuesday. Officials say businesses have been attacked, looted, and some even burned to the ground. France is now considering giving impacted businesses more time to report their losses to insurance companies. France's president called the damage inexcusable. The King of the Netherlands offered a rare apology for his country's role in the Atlantic slave trade. It comes as the country commemorates the 160th anniversary of when it abolished slavery. Speaking at a ceremony to mark the occasion, Dutch King William Alexander called the practice a crime against humanity and pleaded for forgiveness. It comes roughly half a year after the country's prime minister offered his own apology, but at the time he said the government will not pay reparations, citing recommendations from an advisory panel. This week, President Biden will welcome Sweden's prime minister to the White House. On Wednesday, the leaders will discuss Sweden's intent to join the NATO alliance. NATO officials aim to admit Sweden by the July 11th summit in Lithuania. but Turkey has been blocking it. The White House says leaders will also talk about support for Ukraine, climate change, China, and emerging technologies. You may not have heard of it, but a drug called gabapentin has quietly become one of the most widely prescribed drugs in America, mostly for illnesses it was never FDA approved to treat. Some watchdogs are now calling for more controls over prescribing the drug. They've linked it to opioid deaths and allege it can be addictive for people like Leo Ashline, who have a history of substance abuse.
I think eventually I was just taking more because I was, back to that addiction mentality where like this stuff makes me feel good. When I wouldn't take them, it was bad withdrawals. The withdrawal symptoms felt exactly like the withdrawal symptoms from alcohol, where it was like sweating and shaky, and you can't function without it. The anxiety just went through the roof.
This week on Full Measure, Cheryl Atkinson investigates gabapentin's safety concerns and the push for the government to step in. That's this morning on Fox Michiana at 10. Workers are making progress with the cleanup of that train derailment in Stillwater County, Montana. Crews removed 2 more cars, one containing asphalt, another molten sulfur on Friday. 10 cars carrying hazardous materials jumped the tracks last week. The derailment caused a bridge to collapse and the cars landed in the Yellowstone River. Officials say 2 more cars remain in that river, and it is expected to take days to remove them. Authorities say the water in the area is safe to drink. Travelers taking to the skies for the holiday weekend may experience delays due to 5G. This as cell phone carriers are now free to boost their signals near airports. Aviation groups warn these signals could interfere with certain airplane equipment. However, airlines were given a grace period to reconstruct their fleets. A majority of commercial planes have been updated, but Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg warns not everyone is ready. Delta being one of those airlines. The company cites issues with the supply chain as a reason for the holdup. Walgreens announcing it plans to close hundreds of locations in the U.S. and the UK. The pharmacy chain is expected to shut down 150 stores across the U.S. and 300 locations in the UK. Walgreens did not specify which locations are closing. It comes as the company reported lower earnings this week compared to the same quarter last year. Walgreens CEO says the closures are part of its cost-saving efforts. It's 8:09 on your Sunday morning. Still ahead with the 4th of July coming up, plenty of first responders are offering tips on how you can stay safe. What you need to know this holiday weekend coming up.